Hey everybody, Nick here, and this morning I'd like to talk a little bit about something that's been bugging me lately, and that's the idea of a high-end luxury EDC gear. And whether we're talking watches, whether we're talking pens, whether we're talking knives, whether we're talking wallets, whether we're talking rings, whatever the heck it is that you carry every day, you can get cheap versions and you can get really expensive versions. And, that's something that a lot of people think about, and, so I want to put in my 2 cents here. So money generally buys an increase in niceness. In the watch world, there is absolutely no question that your little Timex is not going to be, as nice of a watch as, your $300 Citizen, and the Citizen's going to be nothing compared to your $6,000 Omega, and your Omega is going to be absolutely nothing compared to your $40,000 Patek Philippe. That's just the case, and, everybody's got uses and whatever. But often, when you pay a little more money, you get an increase in quality and niceness. This is definitely the case in the knife world, where your Spyderco Bird at $20 is not a great knife. Your Spyderco Delica at $60 is a pretty damn good knife, and your Spyderco, actually this is a great knife, and your Spyderco Sleesh Bowie is a really great knife at $300. As you move up in price, you tend to get an increase in quality, and that's why you watch reviews, to make sure that you're getting something that's worth the price. It's worth the quality. But the thing is, we will often say things like, we being reviewers, hey, yeah, it's $400, but it's totally worth it. And I mean that, for like your Grimsmo Norseman. This is a knife that is worth every bit of its $500. But, it's a little more complicated than that. Because we talk about price in terms of affordability. And people will say things like, well, if you save up a little bit more, someone comes on a forum and says, I'm thinking of buying a Spyderco Delica. Well, yeah, but if you save up a little more, you can get yourself a PM2. Like, okay, they're different knives, but maybe. Or, if you keep saving, you can end up in a Sleesh Bowie. And at that point, somebody came in wanting a $60 knife, and you're now talking about a $250 knife. Under the assumption that, if you can clear the price hurdle, you always should. And then the common reasoning when people are balking at the price is, well, you use it every day, so why not? You spend the money. It's a good idea. But it's a little more complicated than that. And to address that, I'd like to introduce a concept called the cost-carry comfort curve. So the cost-carry comfort curve is just kind of capturing a pretty intuitive notion, but it's that the amount that you're probably going to carry something, whether it's a knife, whether you're going to wear a watch, whether you're going to hold a pen, whatever, is going to vary by the amount of money that you do. So you might never carry something, you might carry it every day. You might spend $2 on it, you might spend $20,000 on it. You can spend varying amounts. But for me, at least, there's a very distinct curve. Because on the really low end, your gas station specials, I'm really unlikely to carry that. But as you increase in quality, I tend to be more interested in carrying something because of what I called hedonic adaptation in that other video. The idea that as you get to know something that's really nice, whether it's a pen, whether it's a watch, whether it's a pocket knife, you're going to feel better about it. And you're going to like, oh, yeah, it's got all the things I like. And so things that are on the low end tend to be too cheap, you're not a big fan of them. But on the other side, it's not the case that as you spend more and more money, I like it and carry it more and more. Because there's a certain trade-off point where after a while, as it gets more expensive, I actually become less likely to carry it. So, if for instance, a good example of this is the Grimsmo Norseman. I really love this knife, and I do carry it probably 3 days a week when I don't have other things to review. But I feel a little bit more reluctant to because I love this knife so damn much, and I would be devastated, and it would be kind of hard for me at a drop of a hat to replace a $500 knife. That's just my financial situation. It would be heartbreaking. And so as the cost has gone up, as well as personal attachment, I'll give you that, but it becomes less likely to carry. And similarly, if somebody hands me a $2,000 custom, even if the cost is okay, I'm going to be a little reluctant to carry that just because, holy crap, that's expensive. That's a big chunk of my net worth if that's lost. So, that's something to keep in mind. And basically, if you go too cheap, you don't want to carry it because the quality's not there. But if you go too pricey, you end up not wanting to carry it because you might lose it or hurt it or something like that. And the center of this curve really does vary from person to person. For me, probably about $250 is your center line here. Meaning that, I tend to really like knives in that price range. At that point, you get about as much quality as I demand on a daily basis. But it's not so inexpensive that, if it fell out of my pocket, yeah, it would suck and I'd be kind of angry and I'd go looking for it. but it wouldn't be a huge hit to my life or my lifestyle. I can't afford to do that very often, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. Whereas, $1,000 knife, oh boy, that's not a risk I can take, just given my world. So, that's something you got to keep in mind. And the width also varies too. Some people are much more focused, I wouldn't buy $500, and I'm willing to go a little higher. And, I'm willing to go a little lower. Like your Delica is a $60 knife, but my God, do I carry this, because it's a great little knife too. And, the problem here is that if you end up to either side of the curve, you have a problem. On this side, you got the knives that you're just never going to carry because they're not good enough. Or they're not pleasurable enough for you. The Spyderco Tenacious is a great example of this. It's a very good knife, but it's also doesn't have the quality that would make me want to really carry this, because I'm a snob like that. But on the other end, you end up with Safe Queens, knives that you buy, but you're too scared to take and carry and use as a tool. So for me, I've kind of decided past $500 or so, there's, the Norseman, the Rask, I like enough that they jump that. But beyond that, that tends to be knives that I'm not going to carry and I'm not going to use because my finances don't allow me to, if that makes sense. But yeah, you just need to be careful that you're not buying too far to the side here. This actually varies from person to person. Somebody who's brand new to the game, whether it's knives or watches or whatever, is going to have a very low price range. And also somebody who's got, lesser means, will have a different price range. But they might be okay carrying a $10 knife, but once you hit $100, they're done. It's closed. It's just not a possibility, whether it's financial or whether they just can't imagine spending that on a knife. Maybe hedonic adaptation will move this curve over. Maybe it won't. On the other side, you've got the people who, are willing to spend, huge amounts of money on customs. You've got certain people on YouTube who I'm not going to name, but I'm sure they've got skeletons in their closet. Oh, sorry. Anyways, tend to review and talk about and carry really, really high-end knives in the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 range. And, they don't even bat an eye at it. I assume they don't. And, I got no problem with that. If that's what you can do materially, then by all means. I'd love to be in a position where I could carry something that's worth $5,000 and not even think twice about it. But I'm not. So such is life. But there are people on this end, and then there are people, I'm sure, who go all the way throughout the range. That's just something you got to know. But the important thing is that you've got to know about this, because this is a big factor in your life. So using the knife example, this is actually what blocked the Umnumzahn in my life. The Umnumzahn is a $400 knife, and so it's, over here on your curve. It's towards the top of what I really want to be carrying every day. And its main competition in my life was either your Graham Razel, as kind of a nice beater knife, which is, closer to here, or your Spyderco PM2 with some nice custom scales, which was, closer to here. And so, you end up with, every morning you wake up, or I woke up, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to be outdoors, I'm going to need something, I might need something I beat on a little bit. So do I want to take the Umnumzahn, the Razel, or the PM2? And because the PM2 and the Razel are much more high on this curve, the Umnumzahn never ended up getting chosen. And that's a shame, because it's worth the price. It's a very nice knife, but in my mind, with my biases, it just didn't work out. And same thing with the baby Razel, the little Graham stubby Razel flipper. Really great knife, loved it. But the thing is, I was about $600 into that knife. And, with a custom backspacer, some stone washing, that kind of thing. And it was really tough for me to carry that knife over some of my other options, in that low end, like your Spyderco Chaparral, or even a Dragonfly is a really good quality knife. And so that's over here, and my other options are, here and here and here. And so it just didn't get a lot of love. And so I ended up sending it to a collector who did love it a lot, and who does seem to. He keeps buying new Razels, so I guess I win this round. But anyways, it was a great knife, and it was worth that price. But for me, given my cost carry comfort curve, it just didn't quite get there. So I guess the reason for this rant is to address my own faults, basically, in my reviewing. I always talk about better quality being a good thing, and that it's often worth the cost, and it totally is. The Norseman is worth that amount of money, and it still gets carried because it's so damn good, and because I like it so damn much. But you gotta be honest with yourself about where a new purchase is gonna fall. If you're thinking, I'm gonna save up for 6 months, and I'm gonna buy this knife, and it's way out of my normal price range, but it's worth it because it's a Grail. You gotta ask yourself, are you actually gonna carry that? Or is it just gonna sit at home? And if it's just gonna sit at home, are you okay with that? And everybody's got different rules for this and ways to figure it out for your life. I've heard rules like, I'm not going to buy a knife or a watch or a pen if I'm not going to take it out to the, if I want to go pub crawling or something like that. Nice. I like the rule. But remember that a $60 knife like your Delica, that's gem, that you're actually going to carry is a much better tool than a $600 knife that you would never carry. And you got to keep that in mind. Same thing on watches. If you're thinking to yourself, man, I'd love to save up for, Rolex Submariner, but I would never wear it because it's just so pricey, then don't buy the Rolex. Get yourself a Folex or something like that. Sorry, clones are a weird thing. But anyways, just keep this in mind and be honest with yourself about where your cost-carry comfort curve lies for you as an individual. And I think you're going to be happier in the hobby of EDC, whether it's pens, watches, knives, rings, whatever. Keep this in mind. It's a meaningful thing, and it's bitten me a couple of times. And so I'm trying to think about it more. I hope this rant has been at least mildly interesting and helpful. And hey, if you're willing in the comments, let me know what your curve looks like. Have you ever been burned on this before? Where, do you know where your center is? Talk to me a little bit about it. I'm wondering if I'm crazy here. Well, I know I'm crazy. But anyways, hope this is helpful, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day.